Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. So, in today's episode, we have someone who's very special with us, who we got connected by one of our closest alumni. The moment we asked him for the podcast, I think without even thinking, he gave us and he made time for us, though he has his flight day after tomorrow. And we are very grateful for that, sir. Thank you so much. So, to tell more about him, sir is Sundararaman Rengarajan, sir. So, he is a PhD candidate in Northeastern University and he's a researcher in human gait and rehabilitation. And he's also a founder of Myth.ai, a healthcare startup, building AI tools for people with type 1 diabetes. What makes his journey more interesting is that Sir has traveled from Chennai to Tokyo, Baltimore, San Diego, and now he is in Boston. So his story is really inspiring, and let's talk to him more about his career and journey. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and for this opportunity. I like to share my story and the sort of the journey that I've been through, my obstacles, my whatever, my ambitions and how it changed and how people and situations and scenarios shape my journey all through the way. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. It really means a lot for us. So looking at your journey, it's like a world adventure of science. You've been from India, USA, Japan, all over. So, looking back to your younger self, so what made you curious about this journey? Learning about human body movements, all of that.
Actually, right from the beginning, so my journey into biotechnology or so-called biological sciences started when I was in high school. So I studied in CBSE, just few streets here. I studied in Shankara Adayar, which is right near Mala Hospital and stuff. So I've been in this area for a while. So when I was in Shankara, as regular school kid, I used to go through the regular journey of physics, chemistry, biology and everything. And in 10th, I had to decide between computer science, what was supposed to be my elective. I had chances of computer science and then IT and then biology, which most medical aspirants do. And then there was a new thing called biotechnology in my high school, and which only select CBSE schools in Chennai had back at that time. I think only 6 to 7 schools in the whole city had biotech, because setting up the lab and keeping all those apparatus was weird. So when I was talking about what this whole elective was, they just toured me the lab and they said oh, you can isolate DNA, you can visualize DNA, and you can do bacterial streaking, and this was, I'm talking about 15 years back. It was very fascinating to me, that no one has done in school level and stuff. So it's even though I had a top mark in computer science in my 10th grade, the whole school was shocked because I chose to do biotechnology. And then it paid off, I guess, because right from 11th and 12th grade, I was deeply invested in the subject just because it was fascinating to me. Because biology, we all know it's the regular human science and what's happening inside our body of the different systems and stuff. But biotech took another level because it was a culmination of physics, chemistry and biology to me. And all those cool experiments and things that I did as a part of lab work and stuff just stayed with me. And when I finished school, when I was given a chance of choosing a major, I just went back to my biotech teacher. I still remember during my university counseling, I was on phone with her to ask what major should I take, because I was given the option of biomedical engineering in CEG and then industrial biotechnology in AC Tech, and I had few other options outside of an university too. She said just go for biomedical engineering, because I see that you're curious in the subject right now, but what if your curiosity falls down over 4 years, at least you'll have a engineering background to back you up for any other job, or if you don't want to get into research. And that happened I think after 2 years into my college life in CEG, I chose biomedical engineering. There was a dip in interest because I was interested in other things that was going on campus, culturals and Techo Fest, everything. I was just into everything. Kurukshetra was one of the core in my final year and stuff. It was not until third year that I was back into track of getting into research. So the first 2 years was mostly routine coursework and stuff that most of you do. And in third year, I think we had our new HOD. It was Muthan sir. I was really fortunate to have him as HOD and one of our elective teachers, because like looking back, I would say he was the main reason for me to like get back on track. He used to just take classes like not in the regular way. He taught about like application and sciences and things like that. And the exams were really good because it was all open-ended questions in the exam, so you can actually explore and write the answers. And I used to have a chat with him. It's like, I'm not scoring very well in like regular semester exams. He's like, don't worry about that, as long as you can understand the subject it's well. So he guided me for my like third year and fourth year projects, and I was like, oh, looks like I'm capable of doing something. So that got me on track. And especially in my final year, I think it was him who told me to like look for other options, like even within India and outside of India. So I tried to do GATE. I got a score. I got admitted into IIT Madras for MTech Clinical Engineering, and then I also got an offer to go to Tokyo because I didn't plan for US at that point of time in my life. I was thinking anything is fine sort of thing. So I had these two or three options with me. I had like two admits from Japan and like one from IIT Madras. I again like went back to him and asked like, what should I do? He said like, just go abroad because you can always get something. Because at that time I was also setting for placements. AstraZeneca was interested in like hiring me, but then because I got admits, I mean all those things, like before the final round I just said you can hire a better candidate because I don't think I'll be taking the job. So that's how it happened. So once I moved to Japan, it was all mostly my mentors. I was into immunology research at that point of time. I was studying B cells and things, but during that course of time is what hit me, like I have to study brain and like body movements and things like that. And looking at that point, like Japan was more into like cell biology and things like that, but was more into like brain sciences and technologies for either diagnosis or treatments of like brain sciences. So that's when I made a call and I moved to like Johns Hopkins from Japan. Yeah.
One, I think in every point, I think you had one mentor to ask for, and you
Yeah.
were really clear. With
Yeah, even now, like I still don't make my decisions. I know it might be a little immature to say, but every time I have a confusion or I have to make like a big decision, I always go to my mentor. They are the ones who just tell me like do this, and I like blindly trust them. Like that's the only thing. I don't like second guess or second question. Like should I do? Are they guiding us well or things like that? Every point of time, it's always been my mentors who's guided me and like like made all those decisions for me. Yeah.
so that's really nice. So the like, having mentors in every path really helps us. So you have, as said, sir, you have traveled all around the world. So any culture gaps that you were shocked, because from India, Japan has a very different culture because I've studied about that, and again from Japan you've been to US. So what shocked you mainly on the culture?
So with Japan, I've been to Japan before I studied actually. So I've been as a tourist and I know the culture pretty well. Like I've been visiting here and there on and off, like so pretty familiar with the city, the culture and things like that. But what I was surprised was the work culture. So like you heard, like it's a very hectic work culture. People are very workaholic and you have to work like 9 to 10 hours a day and things like that. But what shocked me was they implement that in the education system as well. So if you're a researcher, irrespective of you're a master's student or a PhD or a postdoctoral researcher, you're expected to work 10 to 12 hours a day, and it's like there's no excuse sort of thing because the whole population around you in the lab works. So it'll be odd for you to like give excuses to take holidays and things like that. So that was one thing. And second one was like it was more of you have to respect your mentor sort of thing or boss in office culture. So in my case, if my advisor tells me to repeat the experiment 3 times, I shouldn't ask why, because he has something in mind, but you don't usually question your boss sort of thing. So in the beginning stages, I was like, I just did the experiment last week, why is he asking to do again? And see, he has something in mind, but he'll reveal that later, but it'll take you a while to like get that instance done. It was surprising for me because I've heard research to be more like, even when I was working with Muthan sir, it was more of exchange and conversation based, like intellectual conversation. Here it was more of like, okay, the boss is telling something you're supposed to do, just do it and then you can have a conversation sort of thing. So those two were like the primary, I would say, like culture shock for me, and it was a little tricky to adapt because one, I'm extrovert, I like to like have it more conversational, and there it's more like, okay, you have to do no questions asked and then just move on and then like discuss about like why we did certain things sort of thing. Stayed, yeah. And after that, we had a good bonding. Like, still, I think the culture is the same. Like, if my mentor is still in touch with me, if he asks me to do something, I will do it. And then, like, we'll do a whole post-mortem of like why he asked me to do certain things. So that was the biggest shock or whatever surprise to me when I moved there. But then when I came to US, I already was familiar with how the system was because I've been like corresponding with a few people. So it's more of like a chill attitude in US. I mean, it's strict, but it's just that it's they value your input also in the ideation and the planning stage. So when I moved to Hopkins and I wanted to do my like master's thesis in Hopkins, it was more of like what they were like, what you want to do, give me options, and then let's see if it's feasible with what the scope of the lab is, and then like take things from there, like refine the research protocol based on that, and we'll see if we have funding for it or if we have to change it within the scope of the lab and things like that.
Wow, I think there is different culture in all the three countries that you.
And I think like India and US is similar in that sense. In the sense, it's more of like two-way street, and in Japan, it's more of a one-way street. But it later becomes like a two-way thing. Yeah, yeah.
So you didn't even stop with first of all, it's very difficult managing PhD along with the startup that you went. So I know, because PhD, we were looking at your profile, we were shocked. How was sir able to do PhDs in 3 different universities? And you didn't stop there, and you went ahead and also did your startup. So how did you manage all of that, sir?
So for me, like again, like I said, like I didn't plan to do a PhD. If you had done this podcast when I was in college, I wouldn't have said that I was anyway like ambitious to do a PhD. I just wanted to get another experience. So my goal was to like just stay with masters and like get a job and things like that. But when I finished my master's thesis, I had like some good publications out of the work that I did. And then my advisor was like, why do you stop here? Why don't you do a PhD? And honestly, like I never applied for a PhD program. So my advisor had a collaborator in UC San Diego when I was in Hopkins, and she was looking for, she's my current mentor, so she was looking for a PhD candidate who had a background in engineering, at the same time understood some brain sciences. Like it was a mix, it was not like a straight life science student. She wanted to do a mix of skills and skill sets that was necessary for the research problem that she was working on. So when she had this opening, my advisor was like, he was a big deal in autism research, because I study autism and sort of like understand the brain disorders and movements in autism. So when she was looking for it, and already my then current advisor in Hopkins was a big pioneer in like autism research. So he just said like, I have a student, why don't you like take him? And that was more than enough for like a recommendation / application. And she said like, okay, Stuart Mostovsky was my mentor. When Stuart said something, like there's no like no to that. So she said, okay, if he says you're a good student, there's no other like reviewing or interviewing, I'll just take you. So that's how we're going to do a PhD program. And my PhD currently, which I'm wrapping up in like a month or two, is mostly an extension of my master's thing. I mean, it went a little detour on like exploring different aspects of movements, especially like eye movements and body movements in autism, but it's more aligned with what I did in my master's, so it was easy for me to like do it. So that's how my PhD journey started. So I was in UC San Diego for like 2.5 years, and then my advisor moved to Boston. So we moved as a lab from one part of the country to the other part of the country. Yeah. So that's how I got positioned in Boston. So that was my like PhD journey. And then for the startup, it was more of a personal reason, because around 2 years back, my current advisor's youngest son, who was 17 back then, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And we are like a bunch of like sensors lab. We do a lot with like body sensors and like eye movement sensors and things like that. And my advisor had a hard time, even though she was a scientist, she was in the medical field for decades. It was hard for her to adapt to what her son was going through, because for those of you who don't know what type 1 diabetes is, it's a body condition where your body slowly stops producing insulin, and insulin is the hormone required for you to break carbohydrates or sugar molecules in any form and structure. So gradually that functionality like decreases in your body, which means you're supposed to take insulin as injections, or you can have a pump with you, things like that. So in that sense, your daily management becomes a hurdle actually, because you're supposed to be very mindful of how much you eat and what you eat. You're supposed to get enough like sleep and like quality sleep. You're supposed to exercise in a good way, and also like be very mindful of like you have a lower range and upper range of blood glucose levels. So you should be on a continuous blood glucose monitors, which is like a it's called like a company that produces is called Dexcom. So it's like an interstitial measurement where you just inject it here and it stays as a sort of a patch here, and it measures your glucose every 5 minutes and sends to your phone and things like that. So you have to be very mindful, and you should be within that lower and higher range of the glucose levels, because if you go below or high, you'll just get into a blackout zone. So she was facing a very difficult, like task of like just following up with this kid, because he was 17 and close to 18 getting into college. He wanted to be independent, and he didn't want his parents nagging like, oh, did you have your insulin, or did you have proper food and things like that. So that's when we thought like, okay, we are a sensors lab, why don't we do like a project to like help him out, so that was the birth of like Sugar Slay. So that's the product that we have developed right now. It's a mobile application that sort of like takes in all the sensor data, and it acts as a decision support tool. So it predicts glucose levels 1 hour in advance. So if you're going to go high in the next 1 hour, it's going to alert you like an hour before, so that you can, if you're outside, like if I'm doing a podcast right now, I can go rush and get my insulin, so that you can actually take the insulin and it has enough time for the insulin to act. It takes 20 minutes for insulin to act. So we took in all the physiological data, for example, the glucose data, and then your food data, your heart rate, your exercise, stress, strain, sleep, everything. We're using like a fitness tracker. We use the Whoop. I don't know how many of you are like familiar with Whoop here. So we use Whoop, and we use something called Dexcom, which is a glucose monitor. We get data in real time from these two, and then like put it into a specific machine learning model that we trained. And this is all done in like real time, and then it deploys the prediction to your mobile phone, so that you can always see what's your glucose forecast in the next 1 hour is, and take appropriate measures. So that's how that started. It started as a lab project. We never intended it to be a startup, but then like a lot of our, like I said, a lot of our mentors like said that this is something more ideal for business than research. So we just initially applied for a little bit of business funding to like make it as a prototype. We got it, and that was like a good reinforcement for us to understand that this is a good idea that we're working on. And from there on, we got like a little more funding to make it as an actual product. And we're trying to get into the market, but we also have like provisional patents and other like intellectual property things going on in documentation. So it might take around 6 more months to like get us into the actual market. But right now we're doing a lot of like pitches and like showing it as like demos and like different business conferences and things like that. Yeah.
This shows like how the emotional story behind Sugar Slay, because actually we were looking through the Sugar Slay, how it works and all. We were thinking, yeah, it's very interesting idea, because you have integrated a gaming to that, so that we actually went through, and that was quite interesting. I think now I got to know the reason why you chose the game. I think
it wanted, yeah. So the intended audience right now for that app is like youngsters and young adults, and they don't want. See, I have a lot of like fitness apps. For example, I wear an Apple Watch, and I hardly open my Apple Health app because it just bombards me with so much of like information in a way that I really don't comprehend. It's just overwhelming for me to open the app. Any app for that sense. Even Whoop, sometimes it's overwhelming. I think now the Whoop UI is much better. So it shows me like only concise information on the screen that I need to see every morning. I don't need like 1 week's of data right now just popping up on me on the screen. So that's another reason where we have consolidated the data in a way what you want to see at that particular moment. And also we give like, if you've played Duolingo, it's more like, or do a streak continuously if you're learning a language, and we give you XPs for doing your tasks, right? For example, if you have to have 8 glasses of water a day, if you do that well, you'll get like a 10 XP. And then you have a character called Bloody, which is spelled as BLUDDY, Buddy, but with blood, like because of like sugar and stuff. So that's a character that's on screen that just tries to like talk with you, and like you can buy apparatus for it, like hats and accessories and things like that with your XPs. And you also have streaks, you also have like challenges, so you can go on like a 7-day challenge on like, I'm going to eat only like protein rich foods and things. Like you can choose whatever challenge you want. And recently we introduced 2 things. One was groups. You can have groups with your friends and family, so you can see how each other like doing. It gives you that competitive spirit of like, because all these are like mundane tasks. What we do regularly is supposed to be very conscious, like drinking water and eating food, even snacking and eating chocolates and things like that is a very like routine task. And trying to like take note of that is just a Herculean task for you to like do. So that's why we made it more fun and engaging. And the other feature recently we're just testing out is we call it the Slay bot, which is like an API from ChatGPT to like ask it like an AI assistant. It's more like you're talking to a friend, like, hey, I'm feeling very weak. What is happening? So it wouldn't suggest you anything like a doctor, but it might tell you like these are the possible reasons. So you can just get to understand your own like disease, because those are all like young kids, unless you're very interested in biology, they're not really going to understand what's happening to their body. So that way we just want to like, because all of us want to Google and try to get answers. So Google is going to give you weird results. At least this way we have sort of like trained the bot in such a way that it doesn't give you any eccentric answers. It's more like a friendly tone, and like, or if I ask like a friend who's gone through a similar process, that's so it's more like sharing experiences and getting to know what's happening to your body, sort of thing.
Talking about pitching, so you said that you have pitched to. How did you feel? Because is there any difference pitching in India and pitching in other countries?
I think pitching itself is very hard in the sense. My first few pitches were supremely hard. I used to like just blank out looking at the audience. Like I used to go and there'll be like 100 people. Like including the audience and the investors, there used to be like 100 people standing in front of me. And then like after my introductions of just my name and like founder of XYZ, that's it. I used to like blank out for a couple of seconds, and it was very nerve wracking. My heart rate used to go high and things like that. So I think generally it's not a big difference between pitching in India versus US. It's more about who the audience you're pitching to. If you're pitching to VCs, you have to be very mindful of not dropping a lot of like scientific jargons. They're not going to really understand. For them, it's more about if this product will do well in the market. That's all. So you have to be more on the business side and say that, yeah, that is there, but also like, what is this project doing to people? So just telling that, okay, if I'm putting this app there, what makes you buy this app? So that's what VCs are more interested, rather than like, oh, this is the state of the art machine learning model, or I'm using the best sensor tech. They don't care about that. There's like, okay, now if this app is in the app store, and if it's like, let's say $10 or 100 rupees in India, what is it that will make you buy this app? So are you catering to the need of the customer there? And then if you're going into like for example, you have these non-dilutive fundings like grants and things like that. So there it has to be a mix of science versus market. So for me, that was hard because I was very used to giving research presentations, which is long and boring, and it's a very exhaustive like talk. For me to like tell this whole idea in under 3 minutes was a big task, and I had to like have a lot of practice, and I did have a lot of practice. We had a lot of mentors who said like, do this, do that. And also it's not only about you giving the information in under 3 minutes, it's also the slide deck. So it has to be visually appealing to a lot of folks. So I never understood that, because like most research presentations, if you see, is all in like white and black and white, or it's like pale colors and things. There's no like visual artistry in like the slide that you prepare. But when it comes to like entrepreneurship pitching, your pitch deck says a lot. Even if, because a lot of times what happens is the VCs just ask you to send the pitch decks, or even like investors, or even like people who are giving grants just ask you to send the pitch deck in advance before you actually like pitch. So that speaks your work. So it has to be very like self-explanatory. At the same time, it shouldn't have a lot of like text and things like it. It has to be a balance. So if I just send my like sugar slay deck to you, you should be in a position to understand without me like explaining at least the crux of it. What does the product do, or what does the app do, and then like what's the market, and things like that. So those are the things that I understood over the process, because like I said, I don't have a business background. So all these was learning things more than the science. It was more of the business aspects of it that I learned through the process.
I think even the time is, I think it's very limited for you.
It
you
is.
get to pitch in 5 minutes, because we are used to pitch for long hours.
Correct,
During
yeah.
for the, I think research, we
Correct.
generally spend, I think, minimum of 15 to 20 minutes,
True.
while pitch decks is like 3 minutes and 2 minutes of questions.
That is true. Yeah. And also like here, like last month, interestingly, I had a pitch, which was just for 1 minute. I had to pitch the sugar slay in like 1 minute in front of like 200 people. I mean, it was for a prize money and things like that. It was like a competition, but also like it's supremely hard to like actually just say things, because it'll take 10 seconds for me to just introduce myself, and then like for me every second was counting. I mean, like I think I did it in like 65 seconds or something, but it was a big learning experience. I was never this frightened even for my exams, like rather than doing it for like 1 minute. But yeah, that's what, because like people's attention span are less, and also all these investors and VCs, whoever's like funding a company, seeing like 100 applications these these days, and it's just like the resume review in companies. You have so much quantity that they don't have enough time to like spend multiple minutes on your application. So you have to be fast, quick, at the same time efficient. Is what my mentors told me.
Think mentors, how do you think mentors have impacted your life, sir? Like, I've seen like all in each aspect you have been guided by a mentor everywhere.
I think I was just fortunate to have like good mentors, because more than myself, like they were more interested in me. Like even when I didn't care about like what my journey was supposed to be, they cared about my journey more than myself. And it was mostly like they used to suggest me a lot of things. Like what I saw in retrospect, I didn't understand back then, is like they knew that like this whole memorizing for tests and things, I was not very good at that. They knew that, but at the same time they knew that I had the curiosity to understand a problem. So that was two different things, like studying. And then like it was first Muthan sir who said, just understand the problem, like try to find a solution to it, even though you don't know the ABCs or like the foundations in like signals and systems or digital signal processing or image processing. Just in layman terms, like like how in computer science you have this pseudo algorithm of like before you actually write the code, you write like what the code actually does in like simple English terms. He asked me to write like, okay, if you're a scientist, what is it that you will do? Build a box, and what should the box do? You don't need to know the scientific names for it, like if that's what you're doing, you have to contain the radiations and things like that. So it was mostly the mentors who saw what I was good at and what I had to like improve and things like that. And then like slowly we worked on it. Whatever the areas of improvement were, they guided me on like how I can better perform in like exams and things like that. So mentors, I would owe everything to my mentors actually.
The Muthan sir will be very happy seeing this podcast, sir. Okay, sir, I think a fun session, sir. I'll ask quickly 4 questions that like a rapid fire. Maybe we'll try answer. Okay. So one city you would move tomorrow, what would it be, sir?
I'd be Chennai.
Chennai.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't explain that actually.
I'm so attached to Chennai that even in US I just talk about Chennai, and I'm like born and raised in Chennai. I'm so attached here. I have so many friends and networks, so I would say Chennai, because now it's been almost 10 years that I moved out of India now. If I have to move back, I would definitely choose Chennai. Yeah.
The best snacks that you'll eat after a long research session, sir?
It's mostly a cheese sandwich. It depends on the place. If I'm in the US, it's mostly like a cheese sandwich, or it's like samosas.
If you're in Chennai, you'll eat samosas.
Yeah, even in US sometimes you get, but it depends on the location. Like yeah, samosas is my like to-go food always. Yeah.
Even mine. So if your app was a personality type, sir, how would you describe it in 3 words?
Fun and exotic, I would say, because it's we've really given it a thought about like how the app should feel, like the color code, the fonts. We've developed like so many. We put like almost 6 months of effort into like that being a personality. So it's very exotic in the sense like you won't find any apps like that, and it's fun. Like I like to just go over my app, even though I'm not checking my health data. It's just fun to navigate in the app. So I would just call it fun and exotic. Yeah.
So one AI tool so that you can't live without.
Right now, I think it's Perplexity. More than ChatGPT, I'm using Perplexity a bit. Not for the text generation. It's more about like proofreading a lot of stuff and then like giving structure to some of my proposals and things like that. And also a bit of like research, like if I have to like consolidate a few research papers and get some sources for certain information, it's Perplexity. So it's really helping the research aspect of it. And then the second top would be like ChatGPT, because it does a lot of like consolidation and like connecting the docs sort of things. The other AI tool that I would really recommend everyone using is called Notebook LM from Google, because what that does is like it's essentially like a notes app in cloud. You can take different notes app at, like for example, if I have a conversation with you, I can take notes from your conversation, and then like tomorrow I'm going to a seminar which is maybe related or not related to whatever we spoke. I just take notes over there, and then eventually it gives you a map of like what is what related and things like that. It gives you like a network. It's a free tool to use. So I find it very interesting because I speak with multiple people at seminars and conferences. Honestly, I don't know what's common and what's very different between these two. But if I put in this notebook LM, it tells me like, oh, this conversation you had with person X versus what you had in India is like very similar. Why don't you connect the dots? Or you can share resources that way. So it tells you certain connections that you don't see superficially. So that's another tool I will really recommend if you're a person who's talking to different people in different domains. Like to put things together.
Maybe they have to definitely try
You should
this.
try. Yeah,
once.
it's a very nice tool.
Because
It's
I'm very
user-friendly.
interested in connecting to various kinds of people. I make
You sometimes you don't know. It's like, okay, for example, I've been talking with AJB about like different things, and I've been like talking with another like alumni for different things. Unless I saw this connection in my notebook app, like I didn't realize that, yeah, I can, why don't we all talk together, rather than having these two simple conversations, because he brings one expertise and the other person brings another expertise. I think it'll be better if both of us like talk together. So that way it's giving you like some connections that you don't see right away, and then like it just based on the content of the information that was shared in the meeting or the seminar and the conversation, it just connects the dots for you. Yeah.
I think then AI is making all of our life more simpler and easier.
Yeah, it's a boon and a bane, I would say. Unless like if you're not like using it for like regular mundane tasks, I think it should be used more for augmenting your efficiency, or like and like sort of like your productivity, I would say.
So juggling through PhD, startup, and all those stuff. So how do you make sure you are clear and you're mentally strong? Because of course there are so many things that you have to face while doing all
Yeah,
of
it's
that
usually like
simultaneously.
my mentors. My mentors are pretty open in the sense like they listen to my personal stories as well. If I say like I'm annoyed by XYZ, by this process or by this application, or you face a lot of like rejections in the sense like certain grants might not work for different reasons. It's not just lack of bad good ideas. It's just sometimes you're not in the right place at the right time, sort of thing. Like those kind of things. If it's very professional, I talk with my mentors and say like, hey, no, this is what I'm going through, and they're like, okay, don't worry, there are hundreds of people who are going through. That just makes you feel better. It's not that you're going to like really go ask the 100 people. And the second one is just some bunch of like close friends, like both in India and the US. You just share a lot of things, even though like they're from your domain or not. They're just ready to like just talk. And if I say like, okay, let's go out somewhere, this is very annoying. Like, there are weeks where I'm just in the lab like all 5 or 6 days, and then like Sunday I just want to like have an escape route. Like if I just call them for a movie, or else like let's go out somewhere, there's some of them are like ready to just come away and like do something that's not what I was doing for the last 6 days, sort of thing. So it's usually my like friends network and friends and colleagues. It's all the same. And also my mentors, if it's like anything professionally, like if you have 2 or 3 grants rejected multiple times, like you really have to talk to your mentors as like, am I doing something wrong, or is it just because the grant scope is not what our project is, and things like that. So those two, it's always there, like backups and stuff.
So in the journey, sir, was there any toughest part or rejection that you faced, and what did you learn from that, sir?
I mean, like there are so many rejections in the sense like rejections for a good reason and rejections for a bad reason. So when I initially started my PhD, like I was so happy that I got like 2 fellowships in my first semester. Just for first semester, for first year, I got like two fellowships. And I was like on cloud nine that because it's very difficult to get fellowships in like year one of your PhDs. So I was like, okay, this is going to continue for I'm almost in my fifth year. I'm crossing my 5th year now. But in my second and third year, I hardly got any fellowships. One, because of COVID, and two, because we couldn't go to lab to like have any like data collected from things like that. So that was a down phase where whatever I applied, and they said this is all like theoretical. We really need to see some data there. So those couple of like rejections, like this was from corporate fellowships, like industrial fellowships, as well as like academic fellowships. It just taught me that, okay, like it's not just like I said, like lack of good ideas. It's just that you have to present it in a way that's catered to your particular application, sort of thing. And then like from 4th year, you did get a lot of like I did. Happen to have a few other like fellowships like go on. So the rejections of fellowships, the first few ones I took it personally because I thought I was doing something wrong. And then I think eventually I understood that it was not just me. It was a couple of factors that's deciding you to like understand what's happening and things like that. Yeah. So those, and then like when it came to like entrepreneurship, I would say we had a lot of like rejections in the first go, because we were just pitching the idea of Sugar Slate just theoretically. Like we just had everything mapped up as a paper and nothing functional, and we just got rejected multiple times, which made sense now, like going into the market and understanding how other products are made sense. So yeah, so there've been a couple of, there's no like one rejection that was like the light bulb moment for me, but it was more of a series of rejections that made me realize that, yeah, you have to like prepare. It's not just you, it's like the scenario and how you prepare and how you present yourself for different opportunities. Yeah.
And you've also presented various conferences all around the world, sir. Somebody sitting in a research lab, or they're figuring out what to do, or they don't know where to start. What is a piece of advice that you can give them?
Just go for it. That's what I would say. Because like if you keep sitting and thinking about it, like it's never going to happen. I was like that. I was more like this whole Amir Khan's act, like the philosophy of like being perfect in things I was doing. But there's no like it's a very ideal situation. There's no perfection. Perfection is always like something you can improve, because if you think you're doing something perfect today, tomorrow there'll be something else that you can actually like improve on with whatever you did. I used to like sit with a lot of ideas, not doing anything, not talking, or even like sharing ideas. I would say if you have something, just find the right resources. So now I think with internet and like the whole community online, you can actually like talk to a lot of people just sitting at home, like, hey, I have this idea, like what do you think of it? And you have the resources to start building also. So I would say just go for it. If you have an idea and you don't know how to like build it, just talk to people. Like you have so many online communities in whatever niche you are in, and then just get validations for idea, because different people might have different experiences. They would say like maybe this will work, maybe this will not work, or it's a great idea for research but not for a business idea, things like that. So if you're having somewhere in research lab, just go for it, I would say. And this is another, like, lot of my mentors have told me was like, whatever opportunity you get, like, just use it. Don't say that this is not in my domain, this is not, even you don't do well, that's fine, that's an experience, but never say no to an opportunity if you can actually go for it, even if it's not like straightly aligned with whatever you're doing. You never know who comes to that conference or who comes to that place. I've made so many connections like that. I've done, if you've seen my like conferences and stuff, I've been to like various different conferences that's not specifically neuroscience, but that whole multidisciplinary thing has got me a lot more connections and a lot more like mentors and a lot more support and resources, which I never knew existed before that. So I would suggest all of them, like all my like seniors and juniors, like never say no to any opportunity that comes your way. If you have the time and bandwidth, just go for it.
So, how do you balance the most technical part of the research and entrepreneurship? You already said
Yeah.
there is much different.
True.
How are you able to balance this?
So it's like usually, so my research is more of like conducting experiments with humans and stuff. So I try to like divide my time not on a weekly basis. It's more on like if I have a team for my entrepreneurship. Like I personally do a few things for the app, but I have like an app developer. I have like a designer who does a lot of things. So what I do is like I'm mostly outsourcing the work. The core idea is mine. I do the whole layout and things like that, but it's mostly my team who does the actual work for me. So that puts a lot less of like workload for me for my mobile application. What I do is like I mean like I just take credit for the work people are doing, in the sense like I mean they're acknowledged in my work, but I mostly do the presentation, the pitching, writing grants, writing papers for Sugar Slay and Myth AI. But the actual technical part is done by another like team of mine who are very good in like doing whatever they're doing. So that way I just have like a bunch of weekly meetings with different teams, like the design team and the technical team, to just make sure they are on the on track and right page. And also like if they have any questions, if they come up with a hurdle or something, like I can just give them some advice on like try this, try that. And we also do a lot of like usability testing and also user interviews to just get opinions from the actual users on how the apps are. That's also managed by another team, where they just reach out to people, show the app, ask them to use it, and then like get feedback on like what works, what doesn't work, and things like that. So for different teams, I only have like meetings for like 1 hour or something, and then check in with them, and that's mostly it. And in my free time, I just write papers and I write grants for Myth AI. The remainder of the time is for my research. Monday to Friday, mostly Monday to Saturday. I try to take Sunday off and not work on anything specific to like work and things. So that's how I try to balance. I mean, like it's honestly like there's no like a straight balance for this. There are weeks where you have to work day and night, and there are weeks, yeah, even Sundays, even early mornings. Like I've stayed in lab till 3 a.m. I just come back home, sleep, get back again like 7 a.m. It just happens. It's just part of the routine. And then like there are weeks where you're just free, like there's not much things to do. You can just focus on like, some reading, or you can just take some me time and do things that you like, things like that. But ideally this balance works for me, but again, like with the caveat that there are weeks where it's exhausting and you just want to like get away from the lab. Yeah.
So you talked about teams. How do you think choosing people for a team is very important, or how do you able to manage that team?
Yeah, for me, I think more what I look for is not you don't need to be an expert in anything. So that's what that's my primary like goal. So I've been like working with my research assistants for almost 5 6 years now. Every 2 years, I used to have a bunch of like RAs, and the one thing that I look for in them is like the curiosity to learn. So they have to be like more passionate about the project. I want to see if they're really interested in the project, and this is not something they want to just work for putting in their resume sort of thing. If they, you can genuinely see, when you talk with them, you know that if they're interested in the project. And second one, you just have to have the curiosity to learn. You don't need to come with like, oh, I am certified in like C++ or C sharp or Java or JavaScript. So for me, it's more like, okay, you have the interest to learn, you have interest in the project, and if you're ready to put in like, let's say my RAs work for like 20 25 hours a week besides their coursework. They're all like undergrads or master students. So along with their coursework and like assignments, they're able to like spend 20 hours with me. That's more than enough. So that's the commitment that I'm looking for. So if that is there, I think naturally there's a bond, because they care for the project as much as you do. And then like they just, things go to another level, because if you have to push someone on like, get this work done by this week, or get that work done by Sunday, and it's if it's like a one-way street of you pushing things, then it's going to be hard for you to like manage the team. Here, if like ideally, if everyone is like interested in the project, they all just chip in their work naturally. All you need to do is just gather their work and make sure like things are going on track. So that's how things have been working, because I've worked with like 10 to 12 people for my like PhD research as well as my entrepreneurship, and this is how I do, and looks like this system works for me, for more productivity and things like that. Yeah.
So one skill that you can tell researchers should have, if they want, because most of the researcher whom I have met also, they all have a mindset that they want to make their idea into a product and be into. So what that skill which can help them get into the entrepreneurship field, what are?
I would say one primary skill everyone should have is patience, because things won't move fast in academic world. Being in academia for almost 10 years now, even if you're in the best of the universities, it's not the university problem, it's just the academic structure problem. Like things are going to take time. If you apply for a grant, even if you have the groundbreaking idea, for you to like get your grant reviewed and get that will take almost a year. It's that's how it is. And then it's going to take time for you to like publish. Now that with AI and AI generated text, publishing is also hard, because now they have to proofread that you didn't generate this text using ChatGPT and things like that. So one core idea, if you're into business or research, I would say is patience. And second one, you need to be more you need to be in a position to adapt to different things, even if you're not from that background. Business or research will ask you to learn a few things that is not really in your radar sort of things. So that adaptability factor, you have to be ready to like learn. And third one is like just curiosity. Never think that you're the master of anything, because if the moment you have that thought, that learning stops over there. Because I'm still learning, even though like I've been in this field for a while. The next time I meet a bigger person than me, like, oh, okay, I didn't know this for all these years, even though I'm in research. So always be curious, that you have to learn. I think these three, the top, I would say the first is like patience. That patience is what I think it encompasses the never give up attitude also. Just go with it. But before you do that never give up attitude, just validate that your idea is like sane. And because sometimes I had like some lame ideas which I thought was great, and then like talking with 10 other people, I knew that this is not going to hit anywhere. And even if I work on this is not going to help anyone. So you have to drop that idea. So you should be in a mindset to like, okay, even though I thought this is a great idea, this is not really going to have any like real world impact. So I should be in a mindset to like, I'm going to abandon this idea. Because some people, they're very personally connected to that idea, that this is just, they linger with it for a while and then just waste their time. So you should know when to like stop working on an idea if it's not like working. That comes into like the patience aspect. And if you think, and if multiple people have said that your idea is great, then just go for it. However, even if it takes 100 tries, just try in like different venues and different areas of where you can get it funded, or where you can put it out in like conferences and papers. So those three, I would say.
So looking at your journey, sir, you have been mentored by amazing people, and now even you are mentoring few others. So what do you think networking in entrepreneurship or academia, how do you approach networking? I personally feel networking is a very has a major impact on a fresher who doesn't have any idea. Talking to people actually makes us learn so many things and get exposure to other different fields as well. So what is your perspective on that, sir?
No, I also feel like networking is key because like you meet a lot of people in conferences. Like for me, like because conferences is the like to go thing for me for the last 6 or 7 years. You meet a lot of thing and you never know like you get to collaborate with them after a while, you know. So when you're talking with people, you have to be mindful of networking because sometimes it just ends up like just talking and people don't even remember you. Like I spoke with one person and like a week later I meet the same person in another event, they hardly remember who I was or things like that. So you should always have like a plan in mind before you talk to anyone, you know, like make sure you introduce yourself briefly that they understand like what you're doing and also show interest in what the other person is doing. So this is a hack that I do where if I see a person, I don't know if this is the right way to do, but I see their name tag and then like I quickly take up my phone. I try to see them on LinkedIn and see like what they are. And I mean, like they usually put like, you know, my name is like, it's like Brian D'Souza. I'm like the CEO of like whatever company. That's all is there on their name tag. You never know what they're working on and things like that. So either I browse their company or I browse who they are on LinkedIn and then approach them. And then you can also tell them like, I looked you up on like LinkedIn. So that way you talk about yourself. So they show interest in something, what you're doing. And also you show that you're interested in what they are doing. So that way you make a meaningful conversation. So after that first few minutes, I think the conversation goes naturally. And even if they don't remember what you're doing as for work, at least they'll remember you like, okay, Sundar has done something in brain research. That's all they'll remember. And when the opportunity comes at their end, they'll be like, oh, I know this person who's there. So I try to talk with everyone for at least 10 minutes, not more than that, because I mean, like if it demands to talk for more than 10 minutes, go for it. But then like 10 minutes is like an ideal spot where get to know what they're doing. First ask that. And once they're done doing that, you tell about yourself. And I would say even if you cannot talk to 100 people, if you're talking with 10 people, that's more than enough. It's here the quality over quantity. So 10 people in each conference will make 100 rather than you talking for a minute with 100 people and not making any meaningful connections. So networking is helpful if you're doing some meaningful conversations, and try to talk with relevant people. If you're going to a particular conference, you know who the audiences are, like who's going to come, who are the scientists or who are the business people who's going to come, and you might need some resources or help or some perspective on whatever you're currently working on. So have a goal rather than having like a mindless or a goal-less conversation with people.
So, sir, like talking about networking again, how do you think students or early stage startups who's like maybe because even me or you, we are extroverts and we tend to talk to people and build the connection. But if someone who's introvert, how do you think they should approach, or any particular thing they should built in themselves in order to make connections?
I would say just for introverts, I mean, I have a bunch of friends and colleagues who are introverts. What I've seen them doing is mostly like get contacts of people from these conferences and then like do a verbal conversation on like emails or LinkedIn's. So text is easier for them to like chat rather than like an in-person conversation. So have like a short paragraph introducing them and do this asynchronously. That I would say is a good start to like break the ice and talk with people. And then once you are comfortable chatting with them like on emails or LinkedIn, then having a video call or an in-person will make that easier for introverts, I would say. But even if you're like not a very like extrovert person, what I would say is just say hi and like have a 1 minute introduction about yourself. And after that, honestly, like the other person will take the conversation there. So you can just, all you need to have is that a little bit of courage to say, hi, I'm XYZ, I'm doing this, and that should be there. Yeah. That's the advice I would say, because I can talk anything. I can start talking about movies and then move on to science. But then for introverts, I understand the problem. One I would say is like the asynchronous conversation on email or LinkedIn or any like social media platform that they are on and they're comfortable talking to. And second one is like just say hi and let the other people take the conversation forward. Yeah.
So, can you share any one of the networking that you made has changed your career path, or?
Yeah. So I went to one of these networking events by Oop, the fitness tracker brand. So they just had like a open call for like researchers and scientists to like just come into their office and like talk about like ideas on how they can use Oop for their science and research and things like that. I just attended that because I wanted to use. That's the time I wanted to use Oop for Sugar Slay actually, because we are trying to use Apple Watch and Garmin watches so as like fitness trackers and Aura rings. We never thought of like Oop, but then we were suggested Oop by another like professor in the university, and that's the same time where Oop had this whole event where you can go and talk about how to use Oop in like different science projects and things like that. So I went. In that event, the CEO of Oop, Will Ahmad, like was there for I think like 25ish minutes in the thing. I just got a chance to like talk to him. I was like this is my ambition with Sugar Slay, and this is what I'm trying to use Oop for. And then he was so excited that I was using Oop because until at that point of time, Oop was more of a sports fitness tracker. It was more for athletes, less for health. And then when I pitched this project, I think he was really impressed, and he put me in touch with his like personal assistants, and he's still in like contact. So that's one connection that I made, which was a very recent thing. And yeah, we have like I posted also on like LinkedIn about our conversations, and I took a picture with him and things like that. Yeah.
So, in your journey, sir, which would you say this is my favorite path all these years?
I would say my time in Hopkins, because my time in Hopkins was I would say it was my eye-opening path in my life, because I just met with so many different people. One, the whole atmosphere of Johns Hopkins was very competitive. That made you like push passively and actively, in the sense like you have to be in the race in the league of others. And also the people I met in Hopkins, the whole neighborhood was. I just saw Nobel laureates walking left and right here. You can have coffees, you can have like whatever lunch and things like that. So all these are like overachieving people, and they're so down to earth. And if you just request a meeting in on campus, you can just have with them. And it exposed me to a lot of like lab environments and how to work, how to approach science and things like that. So my favorite part is the 2 years I spent it at Hopkins has been like I would say like a life-changing experience, because that has opened doors for me in like multiple different ways, like be it being connected as an alumni to Hopkins, and also connecting with fellow Hopkins alumni, and my advisor at Hopkins, Dr. Mostovsky. The moment I just drop his name, a lot of doors open because his name is big, and he's like, "Oh, you're his student," and it's like it goes that way. Yeah. So I would say that's my like favorite. Not that I don't like any other, like I do like all the other experiences, like even Boston has given me so much, but just that that was my starting stage, and it just gave me the right resources that I needed. So that's just my favorite. Yeah.
So, coming on to the final question, sir. How do you see yourself, your startup, or your research 5 years ahead from now?
I want to see so my PhD research is about understanding how autistic people process visual information. I just want to see that in like some clinical setting as a diagnostic tool or like a therapeutic tool, because right now it's all done in controlled lab environments. So even though if I'm not working on that project, I want to see my fellow lab mates who are just starting out in my lab to take that project a little forward into like actual clinical settings, so that like people in the clinic use their science and the research that we have found, sort of thing. That's my goal for my PhD research, which we've been working for like 6 to 7 weeks, 7 years. My I think entrepreneurship goal is to have like a collaboration with hospitals, at least in the US right now, who can recommend this app, because there are multiple players in the market right now, which is like Sugar Slay, but not exactly doing what Sugar Slay does. So down the lane in 5 years, I want to see this to be a collaborative tool with hospitals, because launching in the market is not a big goal. I can do it tomorrow also, because we have the app ready and things like that. It's just about like the trust that people have. So I want to like build that trust, and that trust in the app can be built through hospitals, because if a physician or a pediatrician recommends this app, that 1% of trust increases in like, oh, a doctor is recommending and things like that. So now I think our goal for the next couple of years is to like talk to all these like diabetes clinics and hospitals to like see the uniqueness of this app, and then sort of like start recommending it.
So it was such a fascinating story. We didn't know there was all those emotional connection behind the Sugar Slay as well. And this shows you are such a down-to-earth person. The way, I think the moment you came to us and said, okay, we can do the podcast, the amount of happiness being a student that we had is really so big for us. We were literally jumping, okay, we got this opportunity this time. And thank you so much again, sir. This is really a wonderful chance that we got. So, as always, stay curious, stay focused, and keep evolving. Until next time, this is Aditi Shri signing off.